Hi, welcome everyone that's listening in on YouTube tonight. We're here to present our presentation for our 2021 operating budget for the Township of Scugog. Tonight with me I have Adam Dubecki, who is our IT manager. I have Amy Coughlin, who is our library manager. We have Carol Coleman, Director of Public Works. Ken Nix is our CAO. Kevin Heritage is Director of Development Services. I have Laura Barta, who is the new treasurer here at Scugog. Welcome, Laura. I have Lori Bowers, our Manager of Communications. I have Chief Mark Birdie, obviously Chief of the Fire Department, and I have Shauna Cornish, who is the Manager of our Recreation Programs. So I'd like to give a welcome to Mr. Ken Nix, and he would like to give us a little introduction to tonight's presentation. Go ahead, Ken. Thanks.
Thank you, Terry. I'm relatively new to working in Scugog, although I am a resident, and I would like to welcome you, and we appreciate the opportunity to listen to your questions and hopefully provide the answers for your understanding. But before we start, I would like to mention that this session is facilitated by staff, and council will be informed of all the questions and answers for their awareness. You will hear me say often that budgets are not just about money. Budgets reflect the municipality's ability to deliver services. And the Township of Scugog provides many of the day-to-day services and public infrastructure that helps define our community. Unfortunately, municipalities do not have many revenue opportunities available to them. And the money raised through taxation is the key revenue source so that we can provide the resources to deliver the services in our community so we can take care of our assets and address community priorities, all the while ensuring that the township remains financially sustainable in the long run. In the following presentation, you hear what drives the budget for 2021. And I'd like to stress that 80% of the increase is focused on continuing to increase the funding dedicated to ensure our assets are maintained. This is driven by numerous studies that indicated we were not putting enough money into our assets to keep them viable in the long term. And only 20% of the increase is available to support service delivery within the township. When we look at budgets, the township has to look long-term to ensure we can continue service delivery and not just look at 1 year. And this isn't always easy, especially this year. As everyone's aware, these are not normal times. COVID has challenged us most of 2020 and is expected to impact much of 2021. However, at some point, we hope and pray that things will begin to normalize. Throughout COVID, the demand for services has continued. The requirement to invest in our assets has been as important as before, and staff and council have done everything they can to ensure services are delivered in one form or another in a safe manner that protects both the residents and the staff at the township. As we normalize, we expect the demand for services will continue to increase, and our budget is structured to be able to continue service delivery once things return to normal. As we look forward, the reality is that things will get more complicated and pressures on taxes will continue each year. It's important to understand that because beyond the normal financial pressures affecting us each year, our changing community will bring increased expectations and new priorities, and we will need to continue focusing on that investment in assets that I mentioned before so that we can ensure they are provided or available for safe and reliable use by the community. Despite what we face in the future, the budget in front of you addresses planned increases in the capital program. It maintains service levels and it allows the municipality to be in a position to continue providing the services valued by our residents when things do begin to return to normal. So I'd like to thank you, and Terry Barton will take you through a presentation of the budget. And just for those of you that are not aware, Terry has been doing dual duty as acting director as well as her job as manager of finance since the summer. And she's done a great job and basically ran the budget process while she was learning it. Terry, thank you, and I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Ken. And I guess, Adam, we're ready for the presentation. Thank you so much and enjoy.
Hello, my name is Terry Barton, and I'm the Manager of Finance here at the Township of Scugog. I want to thank you for this opportunity to present the 2021 draft operating budget, and also want to thank all the contributors that helped me put this presentation together, as well as all the staff that worked so hard to deliver this budget that has met the target set out by Council. The budget process is a very long process and starts way back in June with the setting of the timetable that lists all the important dates and deadlines that need to be met so that the township can have a budget that is approved early on in the year. As you can see, we are nearing the end of the budget process for 2021. Here is a list of just some of the local services the township provides to contribute to the residents' enjoyment of living in Scugog. Some are obvious, but some the community may not be aware of or how big a job it is to provide that service. Scugog covers a very large area, so there are many roads to maintain, 826 kilometers to be exact. We also have 19 parks and 15 playgrounds to keep clean and safe. The township also has some great facilities and services to take advantage of, like the library, arenas, and the museum. Services are not just provided by programs, but also through the infrastructure that people use on a daily basis. Property taxes are always on the top of the minds for residents, so this is one of the only few taxes you actually see a bill for. Municipal taxes collected are approximately only 9 to 11% of the total taxes paid for a household. As you can see, most taxes paid go to the federal and provincial governments. Also, of that 9 to 11% of municipal taxes collected, Scugog only gets to keep about 3% of it. We believe we are providing good value for this investment from our taxpayers, considering the services we provide and the almost $500 million of infrastructure we manage. The property tax bill is made up of 3 parts: the regional share, which is about 56%, the educational share, which is 14%, and the township share, which is about 30%. Our 2021 draft operating budget has an increase of 4.98%, with the majority of this increase being allocated to investing in our assets to help repair and maintain them. There were many cost influences affecting the 2021 budget, and the township had external factors that were outside of our control. Some of the ones we had to deal with were an increase in both staff benefits and WSIB costs. There also was a 65% drop in investment income rate. Inflation costs increased many of the material prices that are used to maintain and repair our roads. COVID-19 is a topic that everyone is tired of discussing, but it has had an impact on all municipalities. Even with its uncertainty, the township continued to budget as if it was going to be a normal year and did not adjust any of the expenses or revenues. Assessment growth is the sum of all changes that happen to the township's assessment base during the year, including new construction, major renovations, demolitions, and property value appeals. It is usually used in the budget process to help pay for growth and is moved to a reserve. This year, we had to use the full estimated amount of $224,000 to help reduce the increase to the taxpayers. This year, we did increase some user fees to catch up the township's fees to other similar municipalities. Analyzing fees and charges on a yearly basis will be an ongoing activity and is one way to increase revenue used to offset expenses. As mentioned many times before in other reports and presentations, the township's assets and infrastructures are very important and need to be maintained to keep the community safe. Council already has recognized this and approved special levies in the operating budgets that started back in 2014. These levies need to continue so that we can improve our assets and get to a place where we're no longer in a deficit. This slide contains data that shows the condition of all our assets, including vehicles, equipment, facilities, buildings, and of course roads. This information comes from the 2016 Asset Plan. As you can see, we still have many assets in poor or very poor condition. This graph displays the increases of the special levies and the funds that are available to be transferred into our roads and other infrastructure reserve. The township is now able to complete larger road projects sooner and spend on critical maintenance activities at the right time to maintain our roads. This year in 2021, the township will be investing almost $9.5 million into our roads. That is an increase of about $309,000 more than 2020. Cost savings and efficiencies get harder and harder to find each year. The staff continuously look for ways to reduce expenses or to find efficiencies. For the 2021 budget, the staff were able to find some, like the reduction in bank fees and charges, as well as some in the winter maintenance contracted services. The staff also look at revenues each year to see if there are ways to increase the amount. As mentioned before, we did increase some fees this year and will continue to look at them yearly. The total net budget for 2021 is $14,698,600. This is an increase over last year of $952,800. The largest increase portion is allocated to the public works, or roads specifically, as this is the area which needs the most attention. As you can see from this chart, most of the money collected to support the township comes from taxes. Other revenues include user fees, licenses, many types of permits, and investment income. Our grants include money from OMPF, or the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, OLG, the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation, and also from the Canada Summer Jobs Grant. Here is our property tax breakdown for the taxes we collect here in Scugog. As you can see, almost 86% of the taxes that are collected are from the residents. This slide indicates the estimated monthly increase to an average resident. As you can see, the CVA amount did not change from 2020 to 2021. Scugog's increase is only $5.71 per month, or 1.5% on the total tax bill. If we were to take the total monthly amount for Scugog of $120.45 and allocate it out to each department, you can see that the Recreation Department would get $9.08 per average taxpayer. The allocated funds help to keep the user fees down for individual participants and are much less than the price of a single admission to many private sector events or activities, for example, going to a movie. Even with COVID-19, the township was still able to accomplish many things in 2020. Here are some of the highlights. The library introduced new self-checkout kiosks and phone apps to allow patrons to check out their own materials more safely. We increased our communication outreach through social media and mayor update videos. We proactively managed expenditures to ensure no deficit as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. We reviewed and issued approximately 500 building permits, which is a 66% increase over a typical year. 2021 looks like it will be another busy year for Scugog. Here are some of the things staff want to get done or complete by the end of the year. We want to look to expand our bylaw enforcement to meet the needs of communities for nights and weekends. We want to look at converting our tendering process to online bids, as well as a new service delivery method for winter maintenance of parking lots. As with most municipalities, there are always future challenges. Here are some that we know about and will have to deal with in the future. Thank you for listening, and this presentation will be available on our township website at www.scugog.ca.
Well, welcome back, everyone. After that presentation, we did receive quite a few questions through email, so we're going to address those right now, and I'll pass it over to our communications manager, Lori, to start that part of this session.
Thanks, Terry. Hi, everybody. Just again, thank you so much for those that took the time to send us some questions. Questions could be added at the My Scugog budget page. Also, feel free during the session here this evening to email us. We're still monitoring our email. That's going to be budget@scugog.ca. That's budget@scugog.ca. You can send in your questions. We're going to try and address all the questions that we've received and those that come in tonight, but in the event that we don't get to everyone and provide those answers, staff will follow up with you by email and provide you with your response. So just scanning here, and we have our directors on the line this evening. So I'm going to pose this first question to Carol Coleman in your area. So the question is, when can we expect park improvements and new park construction to begin? Great family town, but the few parks that exist are embarrassing.
Thank you, Lori. The township began a plan to replace our playgrounds. We have 15 playgrounds in the township, and we're starting in 2018 and replacing one playground each year. To date, we have replaced the playgrounds at the Apple Valley Park. That was done last year. Before that, the Poplar Park, and the year before that, the Perry Glen Park. So we are investing into existing playgrounds. We're also looking ahead to playgrounds in the future. So in 2021, the capital budget includes replacing a larger portion of the playground at Palmer Park, which is obviously our most used park. And going forward each year after that, we have plans to replace another playground. As well as new subdivisions are built in the township, we will be building new parks and playgrounds in those parks. The first two are in the Carruthers Creek subdivision on Sherrington Drive. There'll be a new playground and park, and there's also one on Ash Street. And both of those parks right now are currently planned to be built next year in 2022. And then we have a third new park coming on board in the new Dell Park subdivision, and currently that's scheduled for 2024.
Okay, thank you, Carol. I'll be keeping you on the line here. I'm just looking at the next question. I'll read it out. Since the waterfront revitalization project is still some time off, could the picnic shelter and the signage posts in both Joe Fowler and the Bagwating Park be painted, please?
Yes. So we agree that especially the picnic shelter at Joe Fowler Park needs some work. We had a budget to do some minor repairs to it to hope it lasts longer. But when we did a structural assessment of it, we found that many of the major components are wearing and becoming hazardous. So they've recommended, a structural engineer has recommended closing the shelter. So the shelter has been closed for now, but in the 2021 capital budget, we've included funds to remove the existing structure and to replace it with a brand new picnic shelter. So we will be moving forward with that this year. And with respect to the signage posts, I agree they definitely could use the touch-up paint, and we will put that into our work plan for this year.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next one, I was actually thinking it was Carol, but it's looking like it's an official plan question. So Kevin Heritage, this one's for you. The question reads, climate change and the environment is very important to me. And what is the township doing to safeguard our environment?
Thanks very much, Lori. The Scugog official plan, which outlines council's direction for growth and development to the year 2031, contains numerous policies to ensure that the township's natural environment is protected. And in addition, there are a couple of provincial plans that are in play as well, the Oak Ridges Moraine Plan and the Greenbelt Plan, that apply to the entire township. So 100% of the township's lands are governed by these two provincial plans. And they include policies to ensure the protection of the Oak Ridges Moraine and the ecological features and functions of the lands within the Greenbelt. Now, as an example of our focus on the environment, the township is coordinating the Lake Scugog Enhancement Project that will establish an artificial wetland along the southern portion of the Port Perry waterfront to improve the water quality of Lake Scugog. This project has been in its design phase for some time, and hopefully it will come to fruition in the near future. And in addition to that project, as part of the review of development applications, and the township has received a number of development applications, the township requires the installation of low-impact development features, such as infiltration trenches, rain gardens, and permeable pavers to retain as much rainwater on site as possible. The intent of these features is to retain as much rainwater and slow the flow and increase or decrease the amount of turbidity in the water, so it doesn't have an impact on our creeks and water areas. And further, the township has a tree replacement policy in order to continually increase the tree canopy in the municipality. Now, these are just a few examples of the many initiatives that the township is undertaking to safeguard and improve the environment. Thanks, Lori.
Thank you, Kevin. Going, I think, back to you, Carol, as it's roads related. I'll read, there are many in-town roads outside of the tourist areas that are well past their effective lifespan. When will these be addressed, and what will the criteria be for prioritizing them?
Thank you, Lori. All of our roads, whether in what you might call a tourist area or outside the tourist area, wherever they are in the township, are reviewed as part of our State of the Infrastructure Study. It used to be called the Roads Needs Study, and we complete this every 4 years. And the roads that are selected for work in the current year are based on the study's recommendations and issues that may have been identified by staff since the study was completed. The criteria that we use to select which road is we look at the type of the road, the condition rating based on the last evaluation of the road. We look at traffic volumes or class of road. We look at issues that staff identify, such as drainage issues that might impact the road condition. We look for synergies with other projects, with projects being done by developers or being done by the region. And also one of the largest factors is the funding that is available that year to address the issues. So while we understand that there's many roads that need to be resurfaced or reconstructed, we are limited by our funding that is available each year, and we try to prioritize the best we can with what we have.
Thank you, Carol. This next one, I believe the project manager is Kevin Arsenault, but I don't know if he's available this evening on the call. So back to you, Carol, again. It's regarding the transportation master plan and the active transportation master plan. They're looking for an update on those plans.
Sure. No, Kevin is not on the line. I told him that I could handle these questions. The active transportation plan and the transportation master plan have been ongoing for over a year now. We've had extensive consultation with it. The draft report will be brought forward to council in March of this year, and the public will have a chance to look at it at that time and provide comments as well.
That's great. Thank you. This next one is finance. I'm certain either Terry or perhaps even Ken might offer a response. I'll read it out. I note that a lot of the 2020 budget was not spent due to finished services being offered to residents of Port Perry. I also note that the 2021 budget does not indicate funds provided by the provincial and by extension the federal government. With so many people facing financial hardship and increases in joblessness, has the township considered reviewing the proposed budget in light of a surplus from 2020 and either lowering or eliminating the proposed increases via taxation?
Lori, it's Ken. I'll take that one. Excuse me. The the current pandemic has affected everyone. The township faces many of the pressures that individuals and businesses do. We have continuing demand for services and while facing increasing costs and ways to get around it in a COVID environment. And we have experienced many revenue reductions as a result of COVID, in addition to the costs that we've had to incur. And we did take a number of proactive steps to limit the impact that did help us in 2020. But unfortunately, these are not sustainable in the long term. And we have to be aware that of what happens when service normalizes. We really don't know for sure what the impacts will be for 2021. We could be in a situation where we have a deficit, or we could be in a situation where we have a surplus at the end of 2021. And that's why we are budgeting as a normal year, because the reality is the demand for services from the municipality has continued, and we need to keep investing in our assets to ensure they are usable in the long term. By budgeting for a normal year, we will be in a position to continue service provision. And if we do experience a deficit, we have a reserve established equivalent to the amount from provincial funds that were referenced in the question. And if we happen to experience a surplus, the surplus will be distributed to reserve funds as per our policy and will help us with some of the capital pressures we are facing. In terms of financial assistance, the demands for services and financial limitations on municipalities do not allow the ability to provide meaningful assistance compared to other levels of government. As you heard in the presentation, we're a very small slice, ultimately, of the overall tax paid by the average household. And as such, we'll do our best to continue to support businesses and residents in other ways, and we endorse the efforts of other levels of government who are better positioned to financially support individuals and businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you for that. This next one came in through my Scugog budget page. It's been tagged pool. I'm going to throw it over to Carol and I'll read it. Page 13 of the Township of Scugog Parks, Recreation and Culture Master Plan. Part 2 mentions that the recent public online survey indicates that 72% of respondents identified the need for an indoor pool in Scugog. I believe that this is the highest unmet need identified in the master plan. What is the timing, please?
Thank you again, Lori. So yes, the master plan does talk about a very strong desire within the community for an indoor pool. There's a difference between need and desire here. Based on the need, there's calculations of what population you need to support a pool. Those standards don't support the need for a pool, but we do understand that there is a strong desire for a pool within the public. And we are moving forward with that. The capital forecast includes a preliminary design for an indoor pool in the year 2023. And we have also, as part of our reserve fund policy, we have started putting reserves aside for major facilities. That includes the replacement of the arena in Blackstock and eventually a new indoor pool. So it is many years off till it would be built, but we are starting the planning process for it in 2023.
Thank you for that. This next question is finance. Again, just scanning the question. It just came in through our email here. Again, at budget@scugog.ca, should anyone listening like to send a question. So this is Terry or Ken. I'll just read it out and whomever would like to answer. It starts off regarding council. To council, I would like to know, We don't have members of council participating in this evening to answer questions directly. I'm sure our CAO can assist with the answer here. I would like to know what calculations you use to determine requesting a 1% decrease to the tax levy, and which services and or infrastructure needs you felt were expendable. And then to staff, it seems to have become standard procedure for councils to annually request a seemingly arbitrary 1% reduction to whatever tax burden increase is required. Is it fair to say that years of this practice have contributed to our current roads deficit, and that the continued practice will contribute to similar issues for future generations? Mr. CAO, perhaps.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just trying to find my button. I realized I was on. That's actually a very, very good question. I think, first of all, it's important to give credit where credit's due. And when we presented the target to council, they did approve what we requested, because we did go in with what we thought was a very realistic target based on our information that was available at the time. We went through the budget and we identified additional pressures in addressing this year's budget. But we also realized that, or we also experienced significant growth. And we recommended to council that we utilize the growth to offset the budgetary pressures. And it ended up coming in at close to 5% budgetary increase. And council did accept our recommendation. In terms of a standard procedure for council to annually request an arbitrary reduction, I cannot talk to that. I'm relatively new. But I do have to say that there are continuing pressures on the tax rate each and every year that will affect us as we move forward to the future. Inflation is different for a municipality than it is for a home. And our inflationary impact is significantly more than a house, and puts significant pressures on us, especially when we look at our capital programs and our ability to manage those. In addition, as we're growing, we'll need to pay for the cost of growth. We'll have to ensure that we can manage and maintain the additional infrastructure that we receive and we purchase and we construct to accommodate growth. For those of you who have lived here all your life, you probably hear people moving here because of the small town atmosphere and what they love about not being in the city. But one thing I know for sure, after working in a career in larger and smaller municipalities, is that when people move in, they'll have increased expectations, and they'll expect services that are similar to where they moved from. In addition, we'll have smaller families, our new families coming in because of the growth, and they'll demand an increase in services. And our ability to deliver services in today's wired world has to increase. So overall, the reality is that things will get more complicated. There will be additional continuing pressure on taxes each and every year. And we will not be able to come in at low increases to support providing services in our to the residents of Scugog. It will be virtually impossible to keep taxes low in the future if we want to maintain services and improve service levels. But it is about balancing, and we'll have to find a way to do our best to do that as we move forward. In terms of the past, again, I can't comment on that, but I do know that municipalities across Ontario have all, or not all, but many municipalities across Ontario recognize the deficits in their infrastructure, and why they occurred, I cannot comment on, but everybody is working towards or most municipalities are working towards addressing the infrastructure deficit so that we can continue to make sure that our assets, our roads, our facilities, and our equipment are there to be able to provide services to the residents in a safe and reliable manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Just looking at our email here for any other questions. I have one that's come in, and I'm going to direct it to Carol. Why does the township not get more grants from the province to offset the cost to keep our roads and bridges in good shape? I guess when he says these are used, I guess the roads are used by people outside the township, yet township residents have to pay the bill. So really about, how we work with grant and grant applications. If you don't mind, Carol.
Sure, Lori, I can answer that. Well, I can give my opinion on that. There's a couple of set grants that the township does receive that are really important to our operating budget and also to our capital program. So we see the OMPF. I can't remember exactly what it stands for at the moment, which goes into our operating budget, and it's really important. Without it, our taxes will be much, much higher. We also receive the OCIF grant, which we use towards capital bridge projects. So we're able to add those up over a few years to be able to do a bridge replacement. We receive over $300,000 right now each year for that. So those are very valuable ones that we receive regularly. There's also, from time to time, funding opportunities that we can apply for. We're successful getting a grant for the urbanization of Scugog Line 6. And that was a large project that we received provincial funding for. We're also successful receiving a grant for the rehabilitation of the Seagrave Bridge on River Street in Seagrave. So we do get provincial grants. That when they come up, they are very competitive programs. Most municipalities have an infrastructure deficit and are very much in need of these funds. So they're very competitive. And while we are successful sometimes, and other times we aren't successful. Whenever we can, we do apply for grants and we try to get funding, but the province doesn't have unlimited funds either. And so we get our share, but we can always use more. So we will continue to look for grant opportunities and apply for any that do come up, and hopefully we'll be successful again in the near future.
Thank you, Carol. I have another question. This one's just come in. It's just looking for clarification. So I think, Terry, you could probably just break this down for us. And it's
Sorry,
regarding...
Lori, before you go into the next question, I just wanted to add to the grants as well, if I could. Oh,
sure, Kevin, absolutely. Go for it.
I think it's important to note that we've received 2 grants from OMAFRA, RED grants, Rural Economic Development grants, for 2 studies, 2 community improvement plans, a community improvement plan for our employment area and a community improvement plan for our downtown. So those have been very helpful in assisting the township in preparing those plans for both our employment area and our downtown. In terms of the employment area, council has approved that plan. They approved that some time ago, and the community improvement plan for the downtown, a draft has been prepared of that plan, and we'll be taking it to the public for public consultation, as well as the landowners and the businesses in the downtown in 2021. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thanks, Lori.
Thank you, Kevin. Yes, absolutely. So an important side of our grant area is the RED grant, absolutely. And this is not a formal meeting, so jump in anytime if I've thrown this to somebody and someone else has something to add. So I really appreciate that. Just scanning here, we have another one that's come in, and I guess it's Terry. I guess in the finance area, it's looking for It's regarding growth. So the question reads, with all the new homes being built in the township, I would have expected the growth to be much higher than the amount noted in the report. Terry?
Sure, thanks, Lori. So the amount noted on the report represents the taxes on the increase in assessment added, not on the actual assessed value of the new homes. So it's a little bit different, what the growth number is. So it's not just on the number of homes, it's on the kind of the number of the homes, not the actual assessed value of those homes.
Oh, sorry, I said okay. I had muted myself there. And then I know it was covered in the presentations. This isn't actually a question that's come in. I'm just asking for just another overview, just in terms of the impact to the taxpayer on their property tax bill. If Terry, could you give that high level breakdown again that you covered in the presentation in terms of the percentage of municipal tax and the percentage of SCUGOG tax and the cost, what the resident will feel?
Sure. So on our resident tax bill, it's made up of three different, I guess, shares. So one share is the regional share, which is the 56%. We have the educational share, which is 14%, and then we have the SCUGOG share, which is 30%. So though that 30% we use, that's the increase for this year, 2021, is the 1.5% on the tax bill. It's just increase of our only 30%, the 30% portion. It's a 1.5 increase on that portion.
Thank you. That's helpful. And as I said, that wasn't actually a question. I was just kind of setting us up, I guess, for a little segue here, because the question that has come in is, just I think there could be some clarification for services. It's actually a very good question. Some folks may not be aware. So it asks, you talk about services provided by our tax dollars, and I wonder why you haven't included the police and ambulance and garbage collection. Terry, as
Sure.
Regional. Yep.
Sure. So those, when I'm talking about, sorry, the services covered by SCUGOG. So the police, ambulance, and garbage collection, among other services, are actually provided by the regional of the municipality of Durham. So that's the 56% portion of the bill that we actually send to Durham to actually cover the costs that they do for us for that. So that's the police, ambulance, and garbage collection.
And if I may jump in on that, Lori, it's also, when we're talking as a lower tier municipality, we really only can control the services we provide. So when we talk about our budgetary increases and what we can affect, it's the stuff that our council controls decisions on. It's not the services that are provided from other tiers.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ken, for that clarification. Absolutely. Just scanning my SCUGOG, looking at our email. And okay, just seeing who I can tag. We've got a few questions that's come in. Just give me a second and I think we'll, Kevin Heritage, there's a few questions coming in from this resident, so I'm going to grab one here with regards to bylaws. Caught my eye, just with being winter. The question is, some residents are uncomfortable snitching, in quotations, on their neighbors to bylaw for issues such as removing snow from sidewalks. Will bylaw take a more proactive role in the future with increases to staff in the bylaw area? Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Lori. If our bylaw staff are out on regular patrols and they see an issue, they will act on it. We don't have the staff at this point in time, and even with the addition of a part-time bylaw officer, we won't have the staff to actively go out and look for issues. But if we come happenstance by them and see that there is an issue, then we can deal with it.
That's, yeah, fair enough. I appreciate that. And just looking at, I'll select just another question here from this resident. And then, as I said, we're taking questions, and if we don't get to one, we will provide a response by email. So I'll make sure that staff have a copy of these questions. So the question is it best practice to budget for expenses like the AMO conference? And perhaps this individual was listening to this afternoon's discussion when this presentation was presented to our council. So is it best practice to budget for expenses like the AMO conference, knowing they will not be spent in order to offset revenue loss in other departments? Ken or Terry, I know that was a question that was kind of addressed today.
I'll take that one, Lori. In terms of best practices, this is, as we said earlier, it's an abnormal year. If we look at reducing expenses for one item that we're pretty sure we're not going to incur, we really should understand what other costs are going to affect us that are not normal. And because there's so much uncertainty, we don't believe it's best practice to do yo-yo budgeting where it goes up and down based on short-term, non-ongoing or non-sustainable implications. If we did that next year and we reduced just expenses but didn't take into account the additional costs, next year the municipality will still be facing the normal pressures from inflation and other pressures, in addition to the one-time decrease that would be taken in reducing the cost. And that would not be appropriate, because either we would not be able to get the funding next year and have to cut services, or it would put us in a position where we would have to make some make some decisions on other funding that is required in order for us to remain sustainable in the long term. So because of that uncertainty, we do believe best practice is to plan to be ready when things begin to normalize so that we can continue our service delivery. And if we do get a surplus, we'll go back to reserves to help for our capital needs. If we get a deficit, we will draw from the contingency reserve in order to plug the hole. And I hope that answers the question, but I do believe that we are doing the right thing, or I would not have recommended that.
Sorry about that. My microphone, I think I was clicking it too many times there. Thank you very much, Mr. Nix. And, this is a fluid open house moment. So thank you everyone for your patience as I am monitoring my SCUGOG and the email. And we also have a chat going here with staff just to make sure that we're providing opportunity for everyone to speak. And just give me one moment. I'm just looking back at email. And so there is one more question. I'll direct that to Carol. How much has been spent on COVID-19 signage, and have contracts been attributed to a single provider or multiple? Not sure if you have that in front of you, like to answer immediately, but.
No problem. I can give it my best answer. I don't have an exact total, but we do have a spreadsheet where we have kept track of all our COVID spending. I don't have signage broken out on its own, but looking at the numbers, I'd say it's less than $10,000 that we spent last year. The majority of the signage, the custom signage that we had done up for parks and for facilities, they were done to a single provider, to a local sign shop in Port Perry. And the reason for that was that things for signage had to be done very quickly. We would receive notice from the province that playgrounds were closed the next day, or with 1, 2, 3 days notice. Sometimes we get a whole week's notice, but mostly everything was very quickly, and we had to react quickly and get signage up as fast as possible. So this meant that we went to a shop in Port Perry that we have dealt with, and they were able to provide very quick turnaround. So there's some other expenses for COVID that we had a little more time to work with. So we installed plexiglass barriers in all of our customer service areas, and we did this when the facilities were fully shut down. And so we had a little more time for this, and then we were able to get multiple quotes and be able to assign it based on the lowest quote. So for the signage, it was done by a single provider.
Yes, thank you. And working right along with you there during COVID, not a lot of time for us to review legislation, decipher the impacts for service, and then action many tasks, including signage. So I do appreciate the quick turnaround on that, as things were changing quickly, and we were trying our best to keep up with all the rules and regulations. And I'm just scanning our My SCUGOG. I thought we did have another question there, but I was mistaken. I've just sent a chat to Terry. She's helping me monitor our emails. I think we've addressed most of the emails that have come in that I know that I'm confident. I don't want to put anybody on the spot with not being able to answer something. So I think we've been able to address most questions that have come in this evening. And we are absolutely still available throughout this next week or so to please provide your questions by email. That email again is budget@scugog.ca. And I'm just scanning for one more moment here. Terry sending me a message. Sorry, folks, if you're just hearing a bit of dead air there. We do have one more, but I'm just scanning the question. I'm going to read it out. Okay, it's a fluid open house. We're going to read it. Those that can answer, please assist in answering. This will be the final question of the evening. And as I said, if we didn't get to your question or we're unable to answer it fully, simply because we have to do a little bit more research, staff will get back to you with an answer. So I will read this next question out. Hello, as discussed during the live event, Port Perry has experienced growth, which in turn has created additional tax revenue. This revenue increase should offset the need for increased taxation, while also improving, I think they mean to say infrastructure upgrades due to the building. Can you please explain why these revenue sources are not detailed in the budget? I think we've kind of maybe touched on this area already with Ken. If we want to reiterate just in terms of growth.
I can take that question. I believe that we have identified the revenue source in the budget. When you look at the budget, you'll see the taxes raised, or the revenues raised from taxes last year. I think it was $13,544,000. Yeah, I don't have the exact number, but it's that number, and that's what shows in 2020. In 2021, you will see our starting point being 13,544,000 plus our assessment growth, and we've tried to identify that in terms of the budget report as well as with the presentation. So it is important to understand what they are, and I believe that it is highlighted, and if we can improve how to present that, we'll look at that and see what we can do in the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, when I am scanning, I just want to say thank you so much for everybody that's participating. I know this is these virtual formats sometimes can be challenging, and we're striving to bring you opportunities so we can continue to be transparent and open in our budget and on all processes. And I thank everybody who's engaged, and we got some wonderful engagement here just at the end. We did receive some emails just flying in here. We are coming to the end of our session, and just doing a quick scan, they look a little bit more capital related. So just want to let folks know that if you have sent in an email and it wasn't addressed here this evening live, that we will be sending our response. Stay tuned to staff. We'll be getting back to you shortly. So that concludes our 2021 draft operating budget live stream. And I thank all of senior team and those participating this evening and at home. And we thank you very much. And feel free to email us at budget@scugog.ca with your questions. Thank you. Good evening.